All right, welcome back. One Monster Podcast. Special episode. We are joined by Ben Kovacs, the founder of Guardian and GM of Flow.
Thanks for having me.
No, thank you very much for joining us. We got in contact through Seth and through working with you through Flow, and it was cool. The first time we sort of met face to face, we managed to spend a little bit of time at dinner and got to learn a little bit about what you're doing with Guardian. But I want you to sort of give our listeners your perspective on what brought about the start of Guardian and what got you interested in making this non-for-profit.
Yeah. So I think I'm actually like most people in the jiu-jitsu world, which is I really love jiu-jitsu, but I'm not that great at it. And I've been doing it for 19 years. I realized I'm never going to be a world champion. I'm never going to be an ADCC champion. I'm never going to make my living from competing. So I thought about 10, 11 years ago, I started thinking, well, this has given me such great things in my life. And it's almost hard to quantify, as you know, all the things jiu-jitsu gives you. It just makes you feel better, gives you friends that are healthy and happy and better habits. You sleep better at night. You're nicer to people around you, your parents, your kids, your significant others, whoever it is. And I thought, isn't it crazy that jiu-jitsu is becoming this elitist sport where you have to have $200, $300, $400 a month just to train and get on the mat, let alone to go compete or buy gear or do all the other things that you need to do. And so I thought, wouldn't it be simple as we give billions of dollars away every year in the San Francisco Bay Area at the time for things like homelessness and drug addiction? Couldn't we just take a tiny fraction of that amount of money and create a gym where kids could come train jiu-jitsu for free? And wouldn't that just ultimately make some of those kids' lives better and give them an opportunity to experience this awesome sport that has benefited all of us so much? And that was really the start of why I started Guardian about 11 years ago. I was working at Twitter with a friend of mine named Joel Lenenfeld, who was the head of brand there. Joel's actually now the biggest ad buyer in the world today at Publicis. And he wasn't actually even doing jiu-jitsu, but he just wanted to do something locally and help out. So we kind of joined up and did it together. He helped get it going and was really instrumental in that. And today, Guardian's got 34 gyms around the world with about 1,000 kids training jiu-jitsu every day for free.
Yeah, that's incredible. And that first location was in the Bay Area?
Yeah, the first location was in Oakland. It was really not meant to be this sort of global nonprofit. It was just, hey, let's just start a gym in the Bay Area. And then over time, it sort of evolved, especially post-COVID, into what it is today.
And then how did you guys come into contact with the Fair Fight Foundation and Seth and Craig and what they were doing?
We got introduced to Craig and Seth through a mutual friend, I don't know, maybe a year or so ago. And we started talking. It was about Craig doing a charity seminar to help out Guardian. And ultimately, Craig was, I think, in Venezuela or Colombia or one of those countries where he was doing one of his special, I think, post-CGI-1 excursions. And
that's a good word for it.
And Seth called and he was like, hey, why don't we pop over and go to your Peru school? We want to check it out in person, in 2 or 3 weeks. Can we schedule that and make that happen? So of course we were like, yeah, that would be great. We went there. And I think what really clicked for Craig and Seth when it came to Guardian was, they had given a lot of money away for charity their first year with CGI, but because of Craig's kind of shtick that he does, nobody ever knows whether he's being serious or joking about half the things he's doing. And so they thought, wouldn't it be great if we could actually start building these schools and doing something tangible? And they started meeting the kids and they started putting their hands on the mats and they started thinking like, wow, this is something that we can do together where we can use our distribution power, if you will, our fundraising power, the power of CJI, the power of B Team and everything that we have to actually, help amplify what you guys are doing, both financially and, with verbally telling people about what we're doing. So that was really the secret sauce. And I think it was, again, that like tangible component that drew them to it.
Yeah, just being there, seeing all the kids. And I think you saw that in I can't remember which video it was, but do you remember, Drew, when they first started producing the videos when they were going out to Guardian, where that first one was? Was that the Peru trip where they filmed?
Yeah.
And Craig's like interviewing the little girl and got the medals.
Yeah, he really loves that girl. He hit me up the other day and was like, and that's the thing people don't realize about Craig, because all he sees is joking around. But both Craig and Seth will hit you up behind the scenes or say, hey, like, what's going on with that kid that we met? Is there anything we can do for that kid? And they remember that girl. They went to a guy's house named Erwin and they went to a girl's house named Dyra. And, of course, once you go into these kids' houses and you see what goes on, not the smiling picture on the mat where they kind of look like any kid in Austin or, Oakland or whatever, but they actually, go in there and they're going to the bathroom into a hole and they've got 12 people sleeping in a 1-bedroom house. All of a sudden you realize like, oh, wow, like now this is so powerful to get them a jiu-jitsu gym, to get them away from that home for 2 or 3 hours a day and get them around. I mean, just to be able to take a shower sometimes and get into a healthier atmosphere is such a big deal.
Yeah, this is something people don't see about Craig specifically, is because he's got this persona. But I think what people don't realize is although Craig took this step back from like his competitive career, is a lot of that was, I think, he started to see more value in what jiu-jitsu could bring to people less fortunate, He always has like given back to people, even though people may not see it. But I think he just saw the importance of like using this platform that he created through his competition career. And although he didn't want to continue that, being able to continue to bring up other people, and especially like now he's had the opportunity to go to so many crazy places, even like not necessarily kids, but the war-torn country of Ukraine, going out there and like helping the people out where he can there, and then traveling through South America. And I know he's got a Horta out in Africa with you guys right now too.
Yeah, we've got a couple academies in Africa, Uganda, and Ethiopia. He actually went out to Ethiopia and helped lay the mats down when we started expanding that school over there, and got to hang out with the kids and go do a bunch of fun excursions out there. So yeah, I don't know. There's so many places in the world, and it's kind of cool that, again, I keep saying this, but it's like you don't have to be great at jiu-jitsu to make an impact, right? Or you can be really great like Craig and still make an impact. It's like, I would say 99.9% of the jiu-jitsu people I come across actually care about this stuff. They just need a vehicle to do it. They just need an easy button to say, great, like plan my trip for me. Like I'm happy to go down and volunteer and help the kids, or I'm happy to donate part of my fight purse to help out, or whatever it is. They want to do it. We just don't make it easy sometimes for people to hit the charity button.
100%. And where was your first international location?
The first international location was Peru, I believe.
Peru was the first one.
Yeah, Peru was the first one. And, people always ask, how do you find these schools? And I almost think of Guardian now as like a venture capital model for the gyms. So what we try to do, where we have the most success, is we find gyms that are already existing. So we'll find like this in Peru, for example. Sal was a guy I trained with way back in the day. He's actually Kenny Florian's cousin. He was a black belt when I started 20 years ago as a white belt at the Yamasaki Academy in DC. And he had moved back to Peru. He had started this little social program there, and he had 5 or 7 or 9 kids training, but he didn't have the capital or the infrastructure or the branding or anything like that to like help take it to the next level. And so we came in and we started helping in a small ways. Here's free gis. And then we started, I think we started helping with paying a little bit of rent to get him a bigger space. And then, fast forward 5, 7, whatever it is years later, that's when Craig and Seth came in, and we ended up building this new mega facility for him in this little town, which is one of the coolest places in this whole area. So that's how we like to do it, is we kind of step in, we find people that have the right ethos, they have the right mindset, they're already trying to help for free, they're not looking just for money, they're not looking for a free paycheck, they want to help their community, and then we come in and make it better. And we're doing the same thing in Uganda now, the same thing in Ethiopia. Now we have 5 gyms just in Peru. We just opened the 5th one. And so it's really spreading all around by finding the right people that run these in the local area first and foremost.
Yeah, that's crazy expansion, just to have like this opportunity in all these places. And like you say, how many? 30?
It's about 34 now. I guess it might be 35 or 36 after the last month or so. But yeah, it's about that.
Yeah, I was recently in Malaysia and came across Connor, who is out there working for Guardian in Malaysia. It's funny now to just know you and like this network that you've created, and like see all these people that are out there trying to better the sport and better people's lives all over the world through jiu-jitsu. It's nice to see that the jiu-jitsu doesn't end at competition. It really does help people's lives. I just want to ask you now how you came from the Guardian side and found the working for Flo, or working with Flo, I should.
Yeah, it was kind of by accident, to be honest. I had reached out to a guy that I used to train with way back in the day who was working at Flow, and I said, hey, we're working with all these great brands now at Guardian, and we're working with Craig and Seth, and why can't we do something with Flow? Is there some something we can do to kind of get on Flow and do some sort of a loose partnership together. And he just said, I don't know, maybe, but you should apply for this job. And I was like, what's the job? And he told me a little bit about it. And at first, I honestly wasn't really that interested. I wasn't looking for a job at the time, but decided I'll just go through the interview process. And I met this guy named Travis, who was the boss who was doing the interviewing for it, to be the general manager of FloGrappling. And I was like, wow, Flow's actually a really big company, and they've got a lot of resources, and they're doing really well as a company. And I think I could actually kind of do well with this job. And then I thought about it logically, and I was like, worst case scenario, I fail and I can't, make it better or make it greater. And, it's still good because I'm still in the jiu-jitsu world. It's not like I'm, leaving everything behind that I do at Guardian and just going and working for some random copper mining company or something. So I thought, what is there to lose? So I eventually, was a lot of interviews and a lot of rounds talking to people, but I eventually, took that job. I think I started around May 1st this year. And that was kind of my first foray accidentally into the commercial world of jiu-jitsu after being in the nonprofit world for 10 years.
That must give you an interesting perspective to be on both ends of both the commercial side and the non-for-profit side. It probably gives you more perspective than anyone else in the business sense of jiu-jitsu,
Yeah, I mean, so I used to work in the cannabis industry for a long time in California, and it's funny how close the cannabis business and the jiu-jitsu business is together. And in cannabis, you basically had a bunch of wealthy guys and girls who rushed in, and they saw cannabis as the next gold mine. They were passionate about it. Maybe they really liked to smoke weed, or they saw it as the future of the medical, this is going to become pharmaceuticals. So you had all these people rush in, and there was kind of this boom cycle, and then everybody kind of realized the reality, which is it's kind of a dirty business. There's not enough money to go around. There's way too much weed being grown. The prices are plummeting every day. And I feel like jiu-jitsu is very similar. You get a lot of people who come into the jiu-jitsu industry. You look around at these different tournaments being put on, especially these international big super fight type things. And they're, you're not 100% sure where the money comes. There's some benefactor who's really wealthy who can afford to sort of not treat it as a business, but it's more of a hobby, but it's kind of a business. And then you have companies like Flow, and now you have UFC, who's a real company, trying to compete with that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's very hard to figure out where's the market here. And you see a lot of the participatory doing really well. Obviously, IBJJF's huge. ADCC Opens are doing well, I think. You've got the Nagas and the Jiu-Jitsu World Leagues. You've got a lot of these type things going on. But then you have sort of the super fights, which is the CJIs and the AIGAs and, things like that. And you're like, where is this market going to go? And I honestly don't 100% know where it's going to go. I have some theories and stuff, but it's very similar in that regard. It's the underlying business is growing a lot of jiu-jitsu, the participatory side, the people getting into it. But then you sort of have this unclear picture at the top from sort of the super fight promotions.
It's interesting what you said there, because I've trained for a long time, a lot longer than probably most guys that are around still. I'm at about 16 years, and you said 19 years yourself, and the volume of these super shows that come around and then just disappear, and then being on the inside now, knowing the guys that competed for those shows, and they're like, oh yeah, we never got paid for this, the money was taken from here, So it's funny that now you're seeing Flow's so big and UFC's come up, and it's almost like it was the Wild West, and now it's coming into legitimate business. That's how it feels. Where I grew up in Adelaide, and the competition scene out there was crazy. It was one tournament a year, and it was gang warfare. Every gym hated the other gym, and now it's for no reason either, just because we all wore a different rash guard. It was insanity. But now it's I know Adelaide in particular, a lot of guys now all train together, and the goal is to get to where we're at now on these professional shows, on these, like yourself with Flow. It's the goal from people in Adelaide that tell me, young kids that are coming up, are I want to be on Who's Number One. I want to do this. I want to do that. And now for me, it's I want to show the guys the pathway there, that it is possible for us to come from Adelaide. And now Adelaide, I think, had 4 or 5 guys medal at trials. Myself, I won Euro trials. Anton got a silver medal. Isaac's also from Adelaide. He won trials, and we had a young kid, Jimmy, who got a silver medal to Joseph in the 88. And it's like from a very small city in Australia to have that success, it makes me very hopeful for the future. And I'm going to pester you in the years to come to get these guys on the show. So I hope you're ready for that.
I was thinking the first part that you said about how everybody hated each other and wanted to kill each other. Can we go back to that? I mean, that sounds more entertaining to me.
It was wild. You'd be outside. It's an old netball court, like netball stadium, where everyone would do this tournament once a year, and they wouldn't open the doors until like 5 minutes before the show starts. So everyone's just in groups, all like death staring each other, looking for guys that are about their size, trying to size them up. It was funny. Like Craig and his brother Adam were competing for a team. I was only young. I was like 14. I'd see all these guys, and I was like, and they must be tough. They're all in a gang in their hoodies together, But looking back, it's like, we were so foolish and just ill-informed of like how big it was going to be and how small what we were doing really was at the time.
Yeah. Well, I think from a business side, I don't know everything yet. I'm still figuring it out, but I would say that the growth of the sport is also kind of the detriment, right, from the business side. And what I mean by that is there's just so many tournaments now, right? And there's so many competitors that are so close. And I think it was almost easier when it was Gordon, it was Craig, it was, a couple, Andre Galvo. It was like these guys at the top. You knew who they were. It was the same group of like the 10 guys or whatever. Or back in the day, you had the Blue Basement where you had these 5-10 guys who were just leg locking everybody. Everybody was buying their DVDs. Everybody knew who they were. And now there's like 10,000 guys and girls that are so close, that are just like maybe one step below, or maybe even a lot of them are actually better than some of the names that And it's like, how do you filter through that, and how do you make a business out of that?
Yeah, from your end, that must be a nightmare. You got all these people wanting to be part of these shows, and they're like, obviously a lot of them are exceptional, and probably would have success, but it's like, how do you decide who comes up, who gets the opportunity? I don't envy your position at all in that sense.
Well, I mean, I think that a lot of people really confuse being good at jiu-jitsu with the business of jiu-jitsu, or being marketable in jiu-jitsu. And I think the truth is, like, that is why the Craigs and the Gordons and people like that caught lightning in a bottle. They really, I mean, Craig is obviously the peak example of that. I mean, if Craig was just funny and he was okay at jiu-jitsu, no one would care.
Yeah.
He'd have some Instagram followers. He'd be a meme account, right? If Craig was just good at jiu-jitsu and he had no personality, again, nobody would care, because that guy always gets second at, whatever. He would just be another guy who gets $1,000 or whatever to go fight on these, super card type fights. The holy grail was getting the best of both worlds with him, right? Being really good and really funny and really unique and interesting. So I think a lot of guys are sort of trying for that. Sometimes I think it comes off a little bit cringe.
I think the best thing for Craig was he always had sort of like an enemy,
Yes.
Like he was coming up, he was fighting Gordon at first, and then they became teammates, and there was a storyline there. And then it was like the enemy was the gold medal at one point, where he just couldn't quite win the title, the ADCC title specifically. And then he separated with Gordon, and he had that enemy again. And he always finds this way to market like this good versus evil sort of thing. And then it became ADCC itself, and then it became the UFC. So it's like he has this ability to market himself in such a way where it's like there's always a storyline. He's not just being funny. He's not just great at jiu-jitsu. There's always a storyline. The retention from people that I've seen is crazy. So many people come up to me like, Craig? I'll be like, yeah, how do you know? You don't even know what jiu-jitsu is. He's like, oh, he's so funny.
Yeah.
And then like, especially when he got into like doing the stuff CGI versus ADCC, and he's shooting rocket launchers at cars, people are sending me these videos, and it's like, you guys you've known me for 10 years and haven't asked once about jiu-jitsu, So it's funny to see like how he's underrated with how intelligent he is, and his eye for like social media in particular, and how he can retain followers, and sort of he almost turns people against like each other.
I noticed too, he doesn't stay on any one thing for too long. He's constantly moving on to the next shtick, I mean, he changed the format, obviously. CGI 1 was a massive success, and then he kind of threw it in the trash and started with a new format for CGI 2, right? Because he's afraid, I think he knows that people's attention spans are low. and he just moves on to the next thing, the next marketing shtick, the next enemy, whoever it is. And I think he's really smart. I mean, Craig is wildly intelligent, like, when it comes to sort of social dynamics.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, he's one of those guys, especially when I first came out here. I don't think any of the guys in the room had sort of encountered a witty Australian guy of that intelligence before. And I'd just come in and he'd just be berating every person one after another. Poor Nicky Ryan have got complexes, just like being around him for so long and just being torn down. So it's funny, like, to see where he came from. And like, I've known Craig for a very, very long time. Like, when he was a blue belt, we knew each other. And then, like, I've been friends with his brother for a long time, and seen him almost like not grow up because he was an adult when I knew him, but like how he's come from this small city and like moved away and like progress and like just to see how big he really took it and like how big he made the sport is pretty impressive.
Yeah, for sure.
I did want to circle back just to, we were saying, like, I've trained a long time, you trained longer. How did you get into jiu-jitsu in the first place? 19 years ago, it wasn't a very popular thing.
I was playing basketball. It was kind of my sport growing up. And after college, 22 to 24, I was playing basketball, go to work, go play basketball after work. And then the games were sort of, some days you'd go and you'd have a great time and there'd be the right amount of people there, the right weather, whatever it was. And then the next day you'd go and 4 people would show up and you wouldn't get any exercise. So I started thinking like, man, this isn't really a great cardio sport for an adult. And then this is kind of embarrassing, but I was wrestling. A bunch of my friends went to Las Vegas and I was wrestling with my buddy Tripp, who actually lives here now. Strong guy, D1 football player. And he just sort of like pinned me on the bed at the hotel. It's getting worse. So he pins me there and I'm like, get off me, man. Like, I can't breathe. Like, get off me. And I just remember being like a 23, 24-year-old at that time, thinking like, I'm basically just begging this grown man to like get off me so I can get up, while a bunch of our friends are like kind of laughing like, yeah, at you. And I was like, I don't have these aspirations to be this really big tough guy, but I'd like to at least be able to get to the point where like I could defend myself from that situation if it ever happened. And so that was kind of the impetus, those two things. I wanted more exercise and I just wanted sort of basic self-defense. It was never, how do I win by 2 advantages by learning the berimbolo? Yeah.
And then what school did you start at?
I started the Yamasaki Academy in outside Washington, D.C. Fernando Yamasaki, Mario Yamasaki, a lot of people know, who was a former UFC ref, brothers. And I did that for about 6 years. And then I moved to California right before my 30th birthday. And so then I started training at Half Gracie out there, which is kind of where I got the rest of my belts from.
You got your black belt from Half?
Yeah.
Wow. What was the scene like in DC back then? I imagine it was pretty good. Really?
Yeah, they had already been established there for, I don't know what it was, 10, 15 years at least probably at that time, maybe more, I don't know. But they had a lot of world champs and, people who had, I don't know how many black belts they had at the time, 20 or 30 black belts in the school. And I think they'd already had 5 or 6 schools around the region. So it was pretty well entrenched already.
That's super interesting. Like, obviously, I was so far away geographically, like, coming up. I remember really back then, all the emphasis was on, like, Southern California, especially at, like, competition level. All the guys, Atos was out there. I think Cabrini was out there at the time. So it's interesting to know that even, like, the other side of the country was still...
Yeah, they
had a depth of talent.
I mean, Marilla Santana, from Unity, was from there his whole life before he split off and started Unity.
Really? I just think
Lloyd Urban trained there as a white belt, I want to say. I believe that's correct, but don't quote me on that. They were one of those people who were like the first pioneers, if you will, in that area. And then a bunch of people, like any of the jiu-jitsu stories, always splinter off and start their own gyms, some amicably, some not amicably.
Yeah, it's funny. I was discussing that with actually Joseph and Dima because we were all training out for the ADCC trials for Joe in Thailand. And it's funny how there's all these gyms and like all these academies and lineage and all this, and it all really just started from that first splintering, and then every splinter splinters off 5, 6 more times, and now there's thousands upon thousands of different schools and different academies all over the world, and it really just came from like the gym splintering. It's like you said, it's like some of them are amicable and some of them aren't. It's funny to see how like this split has like made the sport so big just by people branching out on their own over and over and over again. It's just funny to like think back of how it started, and it was so small, and it's really literally exploded, especially like over the 20 years. Like if imagine like you said, it was like 20, 30 black belts then. I can't imagine how many they've produced now, probably hundreds.
Well, think about it too. I mean, you've got, I assume not that long ago, call it 20, 30 years ago, you had basically all the same people that owned schools. You had Brazilians who came to America. They started schools. Everything was in the gi. Everything was pretty standardized. The way you got promoted was probably even pretty standardized, meaning like a black belt was really good, right? You know, a blue belt had to have certain credentials. And now you just see this like wild fracturing of the sport where you have, when you look at Los Bandidos in London, you've got, you know, Hodger comes to London, he's teaching, Los Bandidos kind of does their thing. They couldn't be more polar opposites, right? You've got this legend of the sport, I assume very gi focused still, very traditional, and then you've got like the wildest gym in the world. And obviously people gravitate to one or the other of those, right? You've got people who want to train that traditional way, and you want people who don't, which by the way, I got a funny Ferris and Owen story if you want to hear it.
Yes, please.
Brazil. So I was down for BJJ Stars 2, 3, 4 weeks ago now, checking out BJJ Stars, and Owen was competing on the card against Mayram. And Owen was just talking all sorts of shit before that fight, as he should, frankly, right? To like get people interested in the fight. And Mayram was pretty quiet. And after the fight, Mayram obviously won and went pretty crazy and was like pointing at Ferris. And, you know, the coach was threatening Owen, saying like, you know, don't ever come back to Brazil or whatever he was saying. And during that week though, or the lead up, the few days before the fight, we were going to train at this gym, and it was like this old school gym called Tetris. I say old school, you know, very traditional gi, a lot of older guys training, and Ferris puts on the gi. Owen's just sitting there watching, and we're at the gym, and it's black belt only day, one of the days that we're there. And so Owen's sitting on the corner of this big mat, and one of the guys comes over and goes, "Hey, what belt are you?" And Owen's like, "Oh, I'm a brown belt." And the guy goes, "Get the fuck off the mat." And he starts yelling at Owen to get off the mat. And Owen is just like turning red, like, can somebody give me a gi? I'm going to kill this guy, like, you know? And so anyway, he decides he's fighting the next day, that day, whatever it was. He goes off the mat and like starts going back to his work. And this guy has no clue. He thinks, you know, hey, I just kicked this little bum brown belt off the mat.
Kick this gringo brown belt off the mat.
And then Ferris and I are rolling, and it's this guy just beats the hell out of me. This like 270-pound guy who's got like 16 stripes on his belt. He won like the 1998 first ever, you know, Brazil tournament there. One of those guys, right? Just heavy, that like hip pressure. And I'm just laying on the bottom, and Owen's like, "You need to move, Ben." I'm like, "Dude, I don't know how to fucking move from here." Like, this guy's just like unbelievable.
Flashback to that bedroom in Vegas.
Yeah. Yeah, it was horrible. I was just like, just trying to, and funny, after that roll, the guy looked at me like, "I can't believe you're a black belt." Like, he looked at me with this like amazing sense of disappointment, like that. And I just remember thinking like, "Oh, this is embarrassing." Because I had like done really well before that. I was beating all the other like, you know, most of the other guys, right? They were older than me and stuff. Like, I'm doing fine. It's not like I'm like every guy smoking me, but this guy was just really good, right? And so Ferris is like, "All right, I got you, man." And so he's like, "All right." And he asks the guy, he's like, "Oh, you want to roll with me?" And then the guy says, "Okay." And they have like this death match, 0-0 death match. And then the guy's like, "Do you want to roll again?" And then I think Ferris beat him. I wasn't watching it, but I think he beat him like maybe 2-0 if you were keeping score. But, you know, again, we're talking like super tight. And you can see like this guy's really, I mean, Ferris and him are like 0-0 essentially like in these matches, just like death matches. So you can see why the guy beat me. But at the end, the guy finally gives him the respect, I think. And he's like, "Okay, like, who's your master?" And Ferris is like, "What do you mean, who is my master?" Like, and the guy's like, "Your master, like, who is your master that you train under?" And Ferris is like, I don't have a master, brother. I'm a Ronin." And you could just see all of like the guys in the gym now, they're starting to crowd around, are sort of like, they can't understand this mentality of like not having a coach that you look up to, that you admire, that you respect. And you kind of just saw it right there in that moment of like, here's the break of the new jiu-jitsu. You've got the Ferrises and the Owens, which are completely on this side. And then you've got sort of this gym of all guys who, at least 40, 50, 60% of them are over 40 years old, training in all white gis with their master.
Yeah.
Right?
It's yeah. I mean, Australia was the same. We had Brazilians come over and open up the gyms, and now it's like that change, that like sort of tidal shift is happening now, where it's like people aren't like, there's no bowing on the mats anymore, or, things like this. It's sort of drifting away, especially in the no-gi scene. And everyone I knew trained in the gi up until like Craig really blew up, and then almost the whole country started to like drift away from the gi. So it's one of those things where I think it was just like a natural change, watching the evolution of the sport and people following.
And you see the most successful guys like Shanji. I mean, I don't know his financial situation, but it seems like he's a guy who's a great example of somebody who's been able to keep this sort of traditional, respectful attitude, do really well both gi and no gi in terms of what his students' accomplishments are. You look at Victor Hugo or Laranjinha or all these guys, like they're kind of doing both.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good example of like a guy who's been able to morph into that Americanized system, if you will, without giving up all the traditional Brazilian roots.
Yeah, he hasn't lost people to the sort of the new generation of training. They still have adapted their training style and have like kept up to date. Like I competed and trained with Felipe Costa and Victor a bunch now, and like they've got such modern games, but still they hold all that old style tradition, like almost the values of that old style of training super deeply in them, And
you can kind of see too how the students who get really good, do they stay or go? Lovato is still extremely loyal to Shanji, and they're still very close friends. Victor Hugo, same thing. Like Laranjinha, same thing. They're not splintering off and is not talking anymore. Yeah. And I think that's a pretty good sign that maybe you're not a horrible human being if you
can maintain these guys for like any relationship. Like if you look at like just anything, how many people from school do you still like speak to? I was fortunate. I had a great group. I can probably call up about 20, 30 guys from school, but I know people that don't speak to anyone from 10 years ago, So I think that goes to show, like you say, if you can maintain any relationship for that long, let alone a working relationship in a sport that's competitive, and it just goes to show Shanji's a good dude. Which brings up, I hope you had extra security for that match with Faris and Shanji, because I was worried that it might explode. And Victor's damn near 300 pounds. Then you've got Lovato, who was the Bellator champ. And I was like, I don't know if Owen and PJ's cutting it here, if it comes to fisticuffs.
Dude, I said the same thing after the fight to Owen. I was like, dude, I looked over and I saw Victor Hugo and Lovato. And then I looked over and I saw you, Owen, and PJ Barch. And I thought, if this goes sideways, you're fucking dead.
Yeah.
And Owen was like, fuck that shit. I would have scrapped him and I would have done this. And I was like, you're out of your mind, dude. Lovato would have slapped both of you in the head and it would have been over with.
Yeah. Austin and I talked about this a little bit yesterday. I was like, I watched Lovato beat the fuck out of Gaga Musasi,
Yeah.
And I was like, he's got no problems running over and slapping Owen.
Yeah. By the way, Lovato is so cool. He came over after the match to me, like at the end of the night, and he was like, hey, King of the Gringos, come on, man. Like, we got to make that match. And he was not like, fuck this guy. He was so calm and so like, this is a man who's he's been in real fights, right?
Yeah.
Like Faris isn't raising his blood pressure. He wants that match. He doesn't want to, he's not going to get worked up and lose sleep over it. And I thought it was so cool how he did it, how it was like, hey, I want that fight. But I'm not going to act like a little kick and scream like a little girl over it, right? I'm going to like just ask you normal in my normal voice. And it kind of made me think like, man, that's a scary dude, right? Like,
yeah.
That's
the most worrying guy. You see a guy in a bar fight and he's not really moving much, he's just watching. That's the most scary guy in that room,
Yeah, like when a guy comes up like, hey, you want to fight? You want to go outside? And you're like, okay.
All right.
And you're like, fuck.
Nope. I'm good. Yeah, that'll be a great match too. Faris on 5. He did super good at Worlds this weekend too. And then obviously looked great in the Junji match.
Yeah, except that last match when he got his back taken in like 0.5 seconds. You might have to help him out with that.
Me? I don't want to do that, man. Someone needs to help me with front headlock defense first. I need to start getting guillotined by all these guys. But yeah,
he's a cool guy. He has like the perfect, like he's really nice. He actually believes what he's saying. Like when he's talking shit and calling Shanji a dinosaur or whatever, like he believes that.
Yeah.
He's not, I don't think he's like making it up. He's thoughtful about what he's saying, but it's not like he's stopping at the very end. Like he's not crossing the line of like offensive, insulting people's families. But his thing, which I totally agree with, he's like, if you think this guy sucks at jiu-jitsu, just say it. Like you don't, like if you're training and you're joking around with your boys in training, you're not glazing some guy who is way worse than you and tell him how great he is. You're like, dude, I beat your ass in training. You're a good friend.
100%.
No, I'll give it to you tomorrow again. And that's just kind of what he brings on the camera. And these interviews and these press conferences, whatever you want to call them, where people just get up and say, I trained hard for the fight. My opponent's really good. We'll see what happens on the mat tomorrow. Man, like those have to stop. Like they're just not.
They do. And I'm bad for it too. Because especially with guys know in the gym, I'm probably one of the worst for like just roasting everyone. Like I don't give anyone an inch, you know. And then I get up there and I'm like, my mom's gonna see this. I can't say anything too wild. But she says wilder shit than me, so maybe I need to change.
So nice though that it might actually be the shtick, you know. Like I don't know.
That's Joseph, you know. And Joseph like gets away with all this nice stuff. I was like, you should see what he does to people. He's the most violent bully I've ever seen. But whenever I travel, I just spread lies about Joseph. It's the funniest thing because every question at every seminar is like, oh, what's Joseph like? What's Joseph like? And I'm just like, he takes so much trend. He bullies everyone. He's a terrible person, and no one believes me, which is right because he is the nicest human being alive. But to train with him is horrific. No one is a bigger training bully than that kid.
How is he so good? I don't understand.
I think the way he learns, his learning style is perfect for jiu-jitsu. He's, how can I put this? His pursuit of knowledge is never ending. Like, just because he's learned something one way, he'll learn it 10 different ways and try and find the most, like, efficient way of doing things. And he just enjoys adding and adding and adding, and he's never bored.
Is he really athletic, or is it more just...
Well, he's a freak athlete. People don't realize that too. But I think Joseph would be very good if he wasn't athletic. But he, hands down, is the best guy I've ever trained with. And he's strong as shit, and he can move so well. He's got crazy mobility. Like, he was telling me he can, like, jump out of pools, you know, like, be hip deep and jump off onto the side of the pool. And
that's crazy.
Yeah, we were working out, and he'd never really seen a Nordic curl before, you know, where you, like, lower yourself down, and he just busts out, like, 5 of them off the rip. He'll just do muscle-ups and stuff. Crazy. And now he's big, too. Like, I was training with him, he's, like, over 200 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, so he thinks he's going to make 77 again, but I'm not a believer.
It's like, why even do it? I mean, it sounds like he's totally fine at 88.
He could do any weight class. Yeah, when training with him is horrific right now. But that's too much. Too much praise for Joseph. Right now, in kilos, maybe 102.
So what do you compete at, though, for?
Minus 99 for AUCC, yeah.
I always get confused with the conversion.
Yeah, 225-ish right now. Someone on the last podcast said I looked lean and younger, so I'll take that, you know. They also said Austin looked about 5 years older in the last 3 months, so it's normally me being called old, so we'll take that as a win. But yeah, because I'm going to do more 205 this year, so I brought the body weight down a little bit. I probably last year was walking around 235-ish, so I brought the body weight down just so that 205 cut's not so bad. I can do it pretty easily in a couple of weeks now.
Nice.
That's the plan anyway. I also got the Polaris coming up, and that's a 95 kilo limit. So what's that, 213 around that? So just doing a little bit.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. Polaris is back on Flow. I think it's January 31st, right?
Yeah. Who's number one coming for it?
Yeah.
So I actually don't even know the team yet. So should be exciting. I know Owen's on Polaris, so I'm gonna whisper some terrible things in his ear if I draw him.
Yeah, you're gonna smash him for sure.
I'm gonna be doing it for the Brazilians, My Brazilian following will go through the roof.
Come out with a Brazilian flag.
Yeah, that's a good idea. What is your goal now with Guardian moving forward, and what we'll follow that up with? Where do you want to take Flow under your sort of general manager reign?
Yeah, well, I think on the Guardian side first, I mean, we have to remember sometimes that we're not some publicly traded company. I don't have some boss giving me goals of what I need to make it. So it's very different than, say, something like Flow.
Yeah.
My main thing is that we have real, authentic, sustained impact, and we just stay in business. And what I mean by that is we've now created this ecosystem around the world of all of these gyms. Some of them are actually connected to each other, like the 5 in Peru. And what we need to do first and foremost is keep the lights on so these programs can keep going. We don't want to create a way where 1,000 kids can train jiu-jitsu every day for free and then one day be like, sorry, everything's over because we mismanaged all of this. And so we're very careful about that, very careful about just sort of, being prudent with our decisions and not over-expanding too quickly, making sure that we have the right donors lined up for projects. And we're getting better with this now where it's like, hey, if we're going to expand in Uganda or Ethiopia or wherever it is, Culiacan, Mexico, we're going to find a sponsor, whether it's a apparel company or whether it's an individual who's going to sponsor that thing. And so that way we're not just like having this convoluted, financing of how everything happens, right? And the goal is to build them sustainably so they can just last forever without us. So like the gym in Peru, we built with 6 Airbnb units, a little coffee shop. And the idea is that we can step away from that. And that for the next 30 years, that has the ability to essentially finance itself, pay for the water bill, pay for the electric bill, pay for the taxes or whatever on the building. And that way we're not...
totally becomes self-sustainable.
Yeah, exactly.
So in sort of like ecosystem.
And, Seth and I used to talk about this, like we want something that outlives us. So we want to put that money in there. We want to make sure that for the next 30, 50 years, whatever, that community has that thing. So that's what I want to do with Guardian is keep building these self-sustaining things. Every year, add 1 or 2 big projects and then find, the 5 or 10 smaller things that we can do that are, maybe call it part 1, if you will, to like, let's say a new school opening or build out where we can then start to watch them closer and see where we need to invest more to make them even better. But that's what I want to do with Guardian. Just keep it going, keep growing slow and steady, keep the lights on, and just keep getting more kids into jiu-jitsu. And ultimately, what I really want to do, if I can be honest, is I want to create sort of like a checkmate scenario for like a Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
I want them to look at what we're doing with Guardian and say, hey, this is so good. We can't do this better. We want to be part of this. Or I want them to look at it and say, Guardians sucks. I could do this better. I'm going to give $1 billion to create jiu-jitsu all over the world for kids. And if either way, we win. I win, whatever, like the kids
community wins.
I don't care if it's Guardian or something else. As long as more people put money into jiu-jitsu earlier on in people's lives, then I think the world wins through jiu-jitsu. So either join Guardian, help us build schools, which is what Craig and Seth decided to do. They were like, why would we go do all of this operational stuff and create the brands and deal with the instructors and do all this? Like, we'll just put our money and our distribution into what you're doing and amplify it, right? Like, I don't get a salary from Guardian, right? I don't make any money from it. It's just a volunteer thing. It's really lean. We have 1 employee. And so I think people look at that from the outside and say, okay, let's just join this thing and do it together. But hey, if Zuckerberg wants to do his own thing or some guy like Zuckerberg, by all means, like, make it happen.
Yeah. I mean, that's so well said. Do you ever get any pushback from the areas where you're building these schools, or people like the communities wanting money for other things? Have you only really found people are supporting your cause here?
We don't get pushback, but what we get then is some people see like a gravy train and they'll start asking for things like, oh, my mom is sick.
Right.
Or we'll get a school who will start fundraising for something else, like, hey, we're doing a fundraiser for this kid's parent in the community. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're doing a fundraiser for the gym.
All this, yeah.
Like, we're not putting money in and resources and time so you can go fundraise for other things. Like, we all need to be on the same page here.
Yeah.
We've made a lot of mistakes over the years. We started English programs and we've started these food programs and we've started these like yoga programs. And what we realize is just like, keep it focused as much as possible on the free jiu-jitsu for the kids. And if you do that and you don't get distracted and it's just an easy no now, whereas before we'd want to say yes to everything when we first started. Oh, we want to start this yoga program upstairs. Okay, well, that sounds good. But then what we realize is it just distracts, and then it costs money and it takes time. And then we just need to say, nope, like we're here for the free jiu-jitsu program. Whatever you want to do on the side in your own time, that's up to you. I can't really stop you from it, but we really want to keep our money and resources and time and social media and everything else focused on the core program.
Perfect. And then following on with your time now at Flow, what would you like to see in your future at that company?
I mean, I would still say that I'm figuring it out, to be perfectly honest. I mean, they even told me when I took the job, like, hey, this is kind of a complex business. There's a lot of moving parts. We have a lot of partners that are great partners, like the IBJJF and the ADCC and BJJ Stars and people like that. And then we have, our own WNO properties and stuff that we're doing here. So take this year and kind of figure it out. Make sure you really understand the landscape before you start to implement a lot of changes. I think the big takeaway, speaking candidly, is that the participatory side of jiu-jitsu is booming. The sort of super fight side, if you want to call it that, is a little vague, like we talked about earlier. And so what I kind of envision for Flow in the future is Flow becomes an essential place for all the people who are doing jiu-jitsu, or many of the people who are doing jiu-jitsu, to feel like it's something that they have to have. Why is that? Well, because it has tournaments that they're competing in, where they're scouting their opponents, where they're watching their kids compete, where they're getting all their own match footage, where they're involved in a ranking system that's allowing them to sort of move up through the rankings to make a WNO someday. Those are all the type of things that, to me, make it essential, and obviously there's a lot more there. And then I think like the super fights, the WNOs in our case, are like the cherry on top.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little bit flipping it, where I think we spend a lot of time and effort and resources right now on putting something like a WNO on. And I think we almost need to switch that a little bit, where the WNOs are more the marketing and powering everything we're doing underneath of that engine, which we are doing, but I still don't think we're doing a good job of explaining to the average jiu-jitsu person why it's important. And what a lot of people don't understand is that by having a Flow membership, you're creating a lot of this ecosystem to happen. Flow's paying IBJJF and ADCC and, all of these different partners, rights fees, Polaris, BJJ Stars. The only reason these events exist, or a main reason they exist, is because Flow is either doing the production for them, or Flow is actually writing them a check in order to have the rights to put on Flow. WNO paying athletes like yourself to come on there. Like, this isn't a money-making endeavor for Flow Sports right now, to be honest. There are other verticals in Flow, I would say, that do better than grappling. Grappling is almost like a labor of love for Flow Sports.
It's interesting that you say that, because being involved in jiu-jitsu, it's like synonymous Flow and jiu-jitsu. But what people don't realize is Flow is a massive company, especially like people from outside, people only in grappling. They don't realize how big Flow is. I've been to the office, and the office is humongous. FloGrappling takes up such a small portion of that, and it's like Flow Sports in a whole is so big that I think people don't realize outside of jiu-jitsu that Flow isn't just grappling. It's so many things.
Yeah, and I think people do see that, or a lot of the athletes see that, and they think, oh, Flow's got money, or they'll see like, oh, Flow raised $10 million in their last financing round or whatever, and they'll say, oh, Flow can pay me. And they don't actually want to be partners. So they're just trying to sort of squeeze out what they can from their match. They're not trying to give back. And what they don't realize is that, there isn't some like endless amount of money when it comes to these sports. Like, you've seen UFC actually make a lot of prudent decisions to cut different properties that they have and partners that they have. Like, there comes a point when people are just like, hey, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. We're not going to keep throwing money into a hole if we're not getting any sort of like return on it. And I think the good news about Flow is it's not a big bad company that's like, we need to make a bunch of money off jiu-jitsu. We need to make money off the athletes. Literally, the conversations about things like WNO are more like, hey, like, can we put these events on? Can they be fun? Can they help move the sport forward? And can we just not lose so much money on them? And I think, 2026, we probably have to have some hard conversations with some athletes and just say, hey, we'd love to have you on the card, but, we have to do it a little bit more economically than we've done it in the past, or we have to change up the format a little bit to be more exciting for the fans. There's a lot of changes we can make, things that we can improve on our side. But I do think, based on the reasons we talked about before, that you have all these super fights with sort of unclear ownership and sort of unclear money of where it's all coming from, it's almost like a more of a fun thing for the person putting on the tournament that isn't a business. It sort of distorts the market a little bit. And people are like, oh, well, I made, $182,000 to go fight for 4 minutes on this event over in wherever it was across the world. So that's my new market price for grappling. And you're like, well,
not quite how it works. Yeah. Yeah. You see that a lot. Like, I've seen a lot is people now are like, I won't do, even low level guys, they'll go compete at like a local super fight show, let's say, and if they get submission of the night, they get $50. And then they're like, I'm not going to do an RBGF because I have to pay. This is like a very scaled down version of what you're saying, as opposed to a lot of these guys now are getting these like international offers from this company that will run one event and just throw money at it and then go, oh, that actually didn't make any money and it's not sustainable. But to the athlete, they're like, oh, I've been paid this amount. Why would I ever do it for less? But in like reality, they're never going to fight again. They're going to lose opportunities chasing this insurmountable paycheck when they should be building the sport by being realistic with their expectations.
Yeah, and I get it. I mean, I get you're a guy who doesn't have a lot of money and you're training in a gym and you're getting ringworm and you're paying for your medical bills or whatever, and somebody comes along and wants to offer you 5 times what you're worth to fight. And, I get why you would want to do that over maybe going to pay to go enter another tournament with more prestige. But, I don't know. It's a tricky one. We'll see how it starts to shake out. But I do think, I like what you did at your last WNO where you kind of had that 8-man bracket, you won. I think those type of things are a little bit more exciting. I think they're a little bit more economical for the person putting on the event. Look, you're not getting punched in the face. Yeah. I'm sure you were tired after that, but like, what? You're probably back to training 2 days later?
I did a 30-hour flight after that. I was stiff, but I was all good,
Yeah,
it's not like the old UFC days where they did 4 fights and they're just jacked up. Like Pride and Yuki Nakai, I can't see out of his eyes, It's a little bit different. It's a little bit more friendly for tournament style. And tournament styles are good. It builds that storyline like we're talking about with Craig. I think a storyline is the best way to sell anything.
Well, I think we got to get back to like the way that jiu-jitsu started just a little bit. I'm not saying everything has to be in Brazil and the gi or whatever, but everything was started as like no time limit. Like I'm 160 pounds. I'm going to challenge the 250-pound guy. I'm going to do these long tournaments, these long submission-only matches. And now it's like everything, you watch the last UFC, everything's in this like corporate bowl with these sponsors, everything's perfectly timed, perfectly choreographed. And you're like, I don't know, man, is this like...
I don't know if I'm built for no time limit though,
I'm not saying we should do no time limit.
That's tough for me. Over 220, no time limit's tough. I don't know how Gordon did it.
Yeah, I'm not saying everything's got to be no time limit either. I'm just saying that like there's got to be elements that make it more interesting, I think, to the fan, where different things could happen. Like mismatches are okay. Like I was talking to Wagner Posha down in Brazil, and he was like, dude, like there needs to be more mismatches in jiu-jitsu. We need to see people getting a highlight reel subbed, and we need every match not to be 15 minutes, like to make the tournament flow. So he's like, everybody's trying to put on these perfect matches all the time. I think he's right. Like you don't need a perfect match every match. I want to see, can Joseph Chen fight 250-pound guy, and is his jiu-jitsu that good? Or I want to see my favorite YouTuber fight. Is he actually good at jiu-jitsu? Like could he come and actually compete against someone like you and win or do well or be respectable? Or does he just get the floor mopped in 1 minute? And a lot of these matchups aren't really happening right now as we try to get into like perfect jiu-jitsu, if you will.
Yeah, I think that was cool, especially that the last tournament, it ended up being me and Dante was the smallest guy in the bracket and I was the biggest guy in the bracket. So it's like, goes to show that, like you said, these mismatches aren't always actually mismatches. Like Dante beat 2 guys well over 200 pounds on the way there, And yeah, like it goes to show that jiu-jitsu talent doesn't necessarily have a weight class, but weight classes are important. But I like what you're saying in terms of like, we got to draw attention in different ways. I think another thing you're saying is it isn't always going to be perfect. I think people have been looking for a long time for a perfect rule set or a perfect time limit. I just don't think that exists. I think there's so many different factors that go into any match that, you could probably run, let's use like Gordon and Craig for an example. Mm-hmm. You could run them over 5 different rule sets, no time limit, EBI, who's number 1, this new like CGI style 3 rounds, and you're going to get 5 different matches, So I don't think we should look for perfection. I think we should look for that excitement, like you're saying.
Just with Gordon winning each one though, right?
Unfortunately, I think that's the trend. One final thing to wrap up. It's something I ask everyone that comes on here, and we covered your goals for Guardian and Flow, but I want to just know what's your personal goals? Like, what's the end goal for Ben? It's a big question, very broad, you know.
Well, I think in the sort of the biggest sense, I'm getting old. You know, I'm over 40. Not quite as old as Seth, for the record, but I'm old. I think I just want to make sure whenever I go, which could be today or could be in 100 years, depending on how medicine's improving, I want to make sure that I'm looked at as a net positive. That's really kind of my main overarching goal. Like, this guy gave more back because I've taken a lot out of the world, right? Like, I've had a lucky life. My parents love me. I didn't grow up super wealthy or anything like that, but like, I had 2 loving parents, I had shoes on my feet, I had food, I had a loving grandma and grandpa. You know, I really got lucky in life, and I want to make sure that more people have a small glimmer of hope and an opportunity, because I had opportunities to kind of pursue whatever I wanted due to those factors that I just mentioned. So I want to be a net positive. It's sort of the top end. And obviously, you know, as a dad, I have 2 kids, a son and a stepson. You know, I want to make sure, you know, my kids grow up with the right sort of morals and ethics, and they have an opportunity to also succeed while not being, you know, pampered and spoiled, right? And so those are probably 2 of my main goals. But I think, you know, we all have that. I've heard Rogan talk about it before, you know, parents of sort of privilege, whatever you'd want to call it. We have that really almost challenging problem, which is we can give our kids so much, and we can send them to the best private schools and buy them the nicest car when they're 16 and make sure they have a beautiful beach house that they're comfortable in. Or we can ratchet it down and say, hey, like, this is enough. Now I'm going to turn my resources and my energy onto doing other positive things in the world for all these other kids. And when I look around, I know a lot of people don't agree with this, but I see my kids in all of the other kids. Like, when I go to Peru and I see an 8-year-old kid who's like begging on the street for money, and I'm like, does my kid need the next set of Legos, or could that kid get food for a month?
Yeah.
And I think we have to, the world has a lot of abundance. I have a lot of abundance, frankly, right? I'm very fortunate. And like, we have to, you know, figure out what that right mix is with our own family and taking care of our wife and our kids and whatever it is, versus how much we're going to put back into the ecosystem for everyone else to eat off of.
That's beautiful. That was one of the best answers we've ever had. Finally, if people want to get involved with Guardian, what's the best way for them to, first of all, get involved? Obviously, just by following, it's a small start, but where can they continue to support you guys and your cause?
Yeah, I think the easiest way, obviously, for people who are willing to do it is just donate some money. It could be a $20 a month recurring donor, or it could be, you know, a $100,000 one-time gift. Guardian's obviously a tax-deductible organization. For people who want to actually kind of get their hands dirty and go do something, obviously this new gym that we built in Peru, we've sort of built it as a tourist destination. So, you know, like Anthony from B Team, I mean, he just went over to Uganda. Now he's down in Peru helping. We have other volunteers who have done that. You can actually book a retreat, and you can go down there and, you know, take your gym down there, or set up a retreat with an instructor like a Lovato or a Shanji or somebody like that you want to go down there with. And so we have ways to kind of volunteer, get your hands dirty. We, of course, have ways to donate. We did have Tom Allison, the head of Facebook. He donated enough money this year that it covers all the operational expenses for the gym. So that means, or for the organization, so that means all the software that we have to buy to keep everything running, our taxes, accounting, legal, and then Calder's salary, our only employee. And so he donated the money to basically pay for all those things. So every dollar that people donate will go straight into the program. So if you donate $1,000 to put mats in Guardian Ethiopia, let's say, like $1,000 goes to that. It's not like an organization where, oh, we have to take out a bunch of overhead and 30 cents on the dollar goes to the thing. 100 cents on the dollar goes to the thing.
This is my dad, Mark Moody's signature move when he gets one of these calls. He's like asking for a donation. He goes, how much of my money actually reaches what I'm paying for? It's his number one question whenever he's asked, and it's like something he instilled in me. It's like, whenever someone asks you this, it's like, what percentage is taken out by these people asking you the question, you know? And
it's a lot, sadly, for most nonprofits, you know, and I don't want to knock all the other nonprofits, but man, it's like a lot of it's pretty sad, especially like the big ones, not knocking the jiu-jitsu ones, but the American Cancer Societies and these United Ways. I mean, a lot of them are bad. And I stole this model from Charity Water, actually. This is what they do. They get wealthy donors to kind of fund their operation because they understand it. And then when they go to the regular person doing their birthday on Facebook or whatever for Charity Water, they can actually put 100 cents of that into the well that they're building in Africa or wherever it is. So I think that model works really well because I think the average person certainly wants to see all or the vast majority of their money go into the thing that they intend it to.
Beautiful. And hopefully next year, I would love to donate some of my time and whatever I can next year to help you guys. It's
awesome, brother.
Something I'd love to be a part of, and support myself, and knowing you personally, and like obviously I've learned a lot in this conversation. Is something I would like to give back to also.
Yeah, we need something to balance out Craig and Seth, some good energy.
A little bit of positivity, No, thank you so much for your time today. This has been one of my favorites. This has been unreal. Thank you.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, man. And thanks for all that you're doing in the sport. A lot of people I go around talk about talk about your passing, talk about it, and you're doing it in a nice way. I know you're hard on yourself because you don't want to talk a lot of shit. And you don't have that sort of self-promotional side, but at the end of the day, you're one of the nice guys in jiu-jitsu for sure.
Nah, very much appreciated. Thank you.